Hello, Rebel Unicorns. It's Answers with Avalon or Storytime with Avalon today, and I just really wanted to come in and share about magic. I think about when I launched my business 4 years ago, and when I first did my values and my moral system, and I was trying to define what it is that my company did. And what I actually said was, my business is to bring magic back to the world. And I thought, that's so fucking cool. But I was afraid of that. Like, that's not something you can just state into regular, conversations. And hey, Tarzan. And at the time, I love that you're here. At the time, I was still involved in a lot of groups and masterminds that were pretty corporate based, that were pretty like professional based, that were pretty like, these are the how to's of having a professional business. And talking about magic, I can promise you, was not on top of the list. That was not top of mind. That was not something that they would have been like, yes, that is absolutely how you're going to be able to build your business, is talking about how you're bringing magic back to the world. Now I'm ready. Now I'm fucking ready, because it's just like, true story. Like, this is one of the things that the world needs now more than fucking ever, if you know what I'm saying. And so I want to give you a little back history, because I think it's important to understand, like, I have always been a magical human. And if you were to be thinking about your past, you are going to know that you've also had magic in your life, your entire life, if you are thinking about it. So for me, this presented when I was little, like little, and once I started to do the work to clear myself, I started to have vivid memories of my childhood. I didn't have vivid memories of my childhood because I had shut down those memories, because Spirit had asked me to shut them down. And I'll tell you how that actually happened. So when I was little, I would have conversations with so many different entities and beings that would come through, and they would come through and communicate with me through my Barbies and through my stuffed animals. So oftentimes, if you were to walk into a room and talk to me, you would see me having full-on conversations when I was little with this whole community that I had set up around me. I would be like building things, talking to them, and it made perfectly good sense to me. I even remember being 8 years old, and we went to the cottage, and there was a child who spoke French, and her and I were inseparable. But we were speaking an alien language to each other. The entire time that we were together, we would be like, right? And she would respond to me. And her and I, for some reason, we like existed in this plane of understanding. Our families didn't quite understand what was going on. And so they were like kind of confused and had some things to say. But we, as two spiritual beings in a body, were communicating at a frequency that even our parents couldn't understand. By the time I was 12, my mom got really sick. Not even 12, I think 10. My mom got really sick. And I remember Spirit coming to me and saying, we need to turn this off. We need to stop talking to you. And it still makes me super emotional when I think about it, because it was like they were my team. They were always there for me. And they said, we need to stop talking to you for a little bit. You've got to go through some stuff. We'll be back. We'll be back. And I didn't remember this conversation. And that closure, that shutdown, that separation from the access to having them was devastating. It was devastating. And that's when I really became connected to the 3D world. And that's when the 3D world became my known. And that's when, I got caught in living for my mom, living for my son, living for everybody else. And it wasn't until during that time, there were things that I would know to do, but not know to do, right? Like, there were still ways in which Spirit was conversing or having conversations with me. So I knew I couldn't work in jobs that didn't feel good. I would quit them right away. I was always the awkward one. Nobody knew what to do with me because I didn't quite understand human relationships. I never understood why kids argued or did what they did. I always hung out with the adults, and the adults were always like, you're an old soul. I don't know if you've ever been told that, right? That sensation or feeling of being an old soul. And so when I didn't know I was an empath, I would numb myself to not feel, but I would be listening to spirit enough to find jobs that were of the highest frequency. And so that's how I ended up in personal training for 9 years, because it was a positive energy and I could be there. At the end of, Ethan and I breaking up when he was 16, and so that would have been 7 years ago for me, and I went through an intense year of trying to still solve the problem. At 17, we stopped talking and I went into depression. It was during this depression that I reinstated the conversation with spirit. If you haven't heard the story before, when Ethan and I weren't speaking, I was super depressed. I had a meditation depression chair that I would curl up in the fetal position in. And whenever I wasn't working, I would be in that chair. And I just remember thinking, this isn't who I am. Like, I'm not this person. I'm normally pretty happy and I'm normally pretty engaged. And so I started to ask myself this one question: what is one thing I can do today to feel a little better than yesterday? And I would get these voices in my head that were mine that would say, have a shower, or go for a walk, or make a therapy appointment, or get your hair done. And I would just do it, not realizing that this was the first form of spirit communication that was coming back to me. And so I would do these little things, and one day spirit said, meditate. And I was like, what the fuck is meditation? I didn't know what meditation was. I knew that it existed. I knew that it was supposed to be really good for you, but I didn't know what it was. But I swear to God, the minute your brain thinks of something, Facebook immediately places it in front of you. And I logged into my computer, and Carrie Samuel's 30 Days Meditate with the Angels was there. And I decided that I wanted to engage in that meditation. And for 30 days, I slept through every single one. I called it meta napping. I would turn it on, I would hear her voice, I would pass out, and then I would come back at the end. And it wasn't long after, because I continued meditating after that I realized that my conscious brain was not ready to handle the work. And I was doing a lot of subconscious healing with the angels in the background during that time. And when I started to realize that in these meditations, spirit was speaking to me, the minute I realized spirit was speaking to me in meditation and knew it for truth, spirit started speaking to me outside of meditations. I was like, angel communication. I would hear from, spirits from other realms. And I was like, ooh, y'all, I think I'm going crazy. And I ended up going to a therapist, somebody I'd been seeing, you guys, for 18 years. Because I was questioning these voices in my head, because mental illness runs in my family. And I was like, am I okay? And when I went to her, after being with her for like 15 years, she said, oh, great, now I think you're ready. And I said, ready for what? She's like, A Course in Miracles. In Western culture, we do not get taught, we don't have the same mentorship, right? We don't have the village elder that when you your gifts start to come into the light, that they take you under the wing and they say, oh my goodness, you're opening, you're awakening. Oh, this is amazing. Let us now foster your gifts and support you in how you can actually support others with this greatest gift that, God, Spirit, Angels, Creator, Source, however you look at it, has bestowed upon you. We don't have that available to us. But this woman, this therapist, was that for me, right? Because if I'd gone somewhere else, they might have said, like, you need to seriously check yourself in. But that wasn't what happened. Susan's asking, do we benefit from meditations when we sleep through them? I 100% believe that. I 100% believe that, again, depending on what the meditation is there or guided to bring you to, because the subconscious is always active, your essence is always there, your life force is always present, the words are always permeating. And if it's something that's a big, release, oftentimes our conscious brain is like, I cannot handle being present for that experience. And so we allow it to be worked through in the subconscious mind. But absolutely, that's why hypnotherapy is so beneficial. That's why, sleep meditation or sleep hypnotherapy is so beneficial, Susan, is because we can still access the subconscious mind even when we're listening to meditations and we don't remember them. So very good question. Thank you. So when I started to do my training, I started to receive loads of information, downloads, if you've ever heard of the term download, which is just receiving ideas or information into my being and into my body. Like different things that would come. Now, when I personally get messaging, it comes as a voice in my head. It's my own voice, but it doesn't come from where you normally hear it. Like if you were to think about your voice right now talking to yourself in your head, like everybody think about something you want to say the color green, right? You can hear that kind of like in your frontal lobe, the color green. You're thinking about it, you're talking to yourself, it's right here. When I get spirit messages, it comes from behind me. So it's like the voice comes as a wave from the back of my head and forward into my thought process. And so these voices would be telling me things like create a coloring agenda. And I'd be like, why the fuck am I supposed to create a coloring agenda? What are you talking about? Why am I doing this? And spirit would be because you've never finished anything. You believe that you can't finish things and you're going to do this. And I would create this coloring agenda and the right person would fall into place, and me, a graphic designer and somebody who could put it to print, and it would be exist, right? And then they would say, create an intention card deck. And I'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't know how to make a card deck or like an oracle deck or anything. And they would say, do this thing. And I would do it. Whatever spirit was saying, we became really, really clear that that is what the messaging would come through. That's how I ended up writing a book. This is how I ended up, launching the Chakra Business Academy. This is how the Coven is being created, is because I receive spiritual downloads or messages that invite me, that guide me into doing these things. So this is one way in which one can state themselves as having magic in their business, is you receive information specifically as a download or information in some form or some way from another realm. If you don't know what realm, you just need to ask. Spirit totally wants to give us all the information. We just need to ask questions. We often don't do that. I'm saying spirit here, but again, you can utilize whatever form or conversation that is you. Great. So Susan's saying, it's a flash of instant knowings. See it. Billboard. Yes. Right? Some people get sensations or feelings in their body. Their hands will tingle. They'll get like shivers on their body. Some people will just have a deep intuition. It will be, oftentimes depending on what your clair is, clairsentient, claircognizant, clairaudient, clairvoyant, there's like 3 more, but I'm not clairgustaf. I think that's smell. And these will help you define which of your gift that is yours, right? So one of the other ones that I want to talk into is being empath, because I think that a lot of people don't acknowledge that being an empath is magical. It's fucking magical. Magic is the capacity to utilize energy in any form or way to create from, right? So when we're talking about seeing, sensing, hearing, feeling things different than anybody else, that's magic. That's the definition of magic in some form or some way. It's knowing that there is an energy source, grid availability that you can access that will support you and your clients in having whatever experience that they're being called to have. And you as the vessel get to be the channel of that energy. When we're thinking about empath, one of the things that I think is so monumental to know about being an empath is that when you do not claim your gift, it is like, and I know this because I work with a lot of spiritual, magical entrepreneurs who are like, I just don't want to tell people I'm an empath, so I'm not going to acknowledge that I'm an empath, and therefore it's not true. And I'm like, yeah, but you're tired all the time. And you don't understand why you're feeling the emotions that you're feeling. And so the first step is to claim whatever it is that is true for you, whether you're clairaudient, whether, so if you communicate with the deceased, but you're petrified of communicating with the deceased, then it controls you. It controls you. The minute you acknowledge and you say, oh, no, this is true for me, this is mine, then you become the conductor, the driving force, the capable person, the vessel, the channel of that to be in service to whomever, because then you can start to say, listen, I don't want to talk to you during the day, don't come in my bathroom, don't do whatever, right? You become the catalyst of the gift, as opposed to the gift being controlling you. Right? I remember before I claimed being an empath, I would go to the grocery store and I would get my groceries, and I'd be so exhausted when I would come in. I would have to put my groceries on the table and have a nap. because I had no idea that just being in the presence of a crowd would fill me with so many emotions and feelings that weren't mine. So there's so many ways to utilize your magic. You know, it's interesting because one of their like spirit will talk to me while I'm doing these, and one of the things that was so prominent for me is that I lived my entire childhood in fantasy novels. I still do. It's all I read, like all I read, other than, you know, self-development books in the morning. I still have a fantasy novel beside my bed, and it's all I've read since I can remember reading, about dragons and fairies and magic and witches and magical lands. And I'm in the business of working with the humans that have the same powers as the people that I've always read about in the books. It's like, that is my reality. Like, are you fucking kidding me? That's my reality. I get to talk to people and humans who have like these really awesome, incredible gifts. And it's like getting them to acknowledge them and be able to then in turn support others with the opening of it, with allowing it to flow through them in some form or some way. I realize might be one of my longest videos ever. So if you're still listening, I'm so glad that you are here. So a magical entrepreneur is this. I'm just going to give you the synopsis. You can see, feel, sense, or know things that other people cannot, because you have attuned your frequency to be able to access a different level of energy than they have. I believe everybody has the capacity to do so. We have just been like taught not to, and to fear it, and to like hold it down or to subdue it. And as you come into a place of understanding and recognizing that you have this capability or this capacity, because sometimes it happens in a way that it's just so natural to you. It's like breathing, and you think everybody else can do it. This includes, like, if you are talking to somebody, and I think of genius brains, you know, and they're telling you something, and all of a sudden you see a visual of everything that they're talking about, and you start to see all the pieces mapping out and aligning in your mind. That is magic. That's a magic gift. You're able to take components and parts and pieces and actually weave them into a complete whole. I can't do that, but oftentimes if that's a gift that you have, you don't even think about it being magical. Right? But you can see things that you can sense things that other people can't sense. So, do you have magic? I would ask you to ask that question to yourself. I mean, I've given you a lot of examples. I've talked about my own magical story. I would love to hear what your magic is, or how you would claim it, or call yourself into it, what it is. I would love for the chat box to just fucking fill with magical conversation. And yeah, I think it's time to bring magic back to the world, and for me to really claim that as my truest of sense 4 years ago when I wrote it into what does my business do? It brings magic back to the world. And if you want to even take this deeper about how to bring modern magic into your business, tomorrow there's a masterclass, link in my bio on Instagram. It's, you know, the links all over the Rebel Unicorns Facebook group, where if you want to be live in it, then click the link, because that'll be the Zoom conversation. We'll be face to face, and you'll be able to ask any question you have about, you know, what being a magical entrepreneur is, what is magic, what is your magic, because we can figure that out together. And the other piece of this is, if you don't want to be in Zoom because you're just not ready to like hold that space, then join the Rebel Unicorns group. The link is also in my bio on Instagram, and it will be streamed live there, and you will be able to have access to that replay at all times. And you can just kind of be like, okay, I'm not ready to like be seen, but I kind of want to know how to add modern magic into my business, because it's very powerful, and it's a really cool way, because I think that it's time that we have these bigger conversations, and you can just kind of secretly watch it and see how it feels. So you can either join the Rebel Unicorns group or join the masterclass and learn tips and tricks in order to bring your magic into creation, calling in more money, more clients, more joy, more intimacy, more relationship into your business immediately with small little doable actions. So I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. It's at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 noon Eastern time. And thanks for listening to my magical story. It's really interesting because it's always expanding. It's always growing. Once you're awakened, you can't go back to sleep. Mwah! Have a great day.